Hey, everybody. You got Adam from Outlier on the show that we still don't have a name for yet. You want to give us a name that is appropriate for all audiences, you can tweet it at me or you can DM me or whatever. But as you can see, I have a special guest. This is a non-football related episode. So if you are not into cold weather sports, just bounce now. I brought in my friend Ryan Gilbert from SGPN, host of the Hockey Gambling Podcast, to talk about three things: how to approach boosts when you see them on books. What the hell are people talking about when they're talking about arbitrage in terms of betting? And NHL and a little bit of NHL preseason. So, Ryan, thanks for jumping on with me.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me here. Thanks for, it's not quite NHL season yet. It's still September. It's still very much football heavy, but I'm happy you're having me on here to talk some hockey.
Yeah. I want to talk some hockey, but also you had mentioned something on your pod the other day that I think that all of our viewers would really benefit from. And basically, you talked a little bit about boosts and when to use them. And I think as a baseline, most people get these 50%, 25% boost. What's a general good approach that people should be taking when they're getting a boost that they can add to any bet of theirs on a book?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what the boost is. It depends on what your max is. Like if your max is $5 and your unit's like 25 or 50, just put it on whatever. Put it on like a lottery ticket. But if your max gets up to 25 and that's significant for you, or 50 or 100, there are opportunities where you can use that boost on that book. Usually DraftKings is the one that usually gives the best boosts and maxes for me. And you can use that to, boost one bet on DraftKings and bet against yourself on another book to usually get 20% of whatever your max is. So if it's $100 max, you can make a quick 20-25 there just by placing two bets on opposite books. I mean there's tools out there, but yeah, there are definitely ways to, sports books aren't quite giving out free money with promos or sign up bonuses anymore, but with these boosts there are plenty of ways to make some money.
And you and I did this a lot during the NHL playoffs, that there was a daily surge boost, which is probably the most common one that you can get you get it in golf, you get it for hockey for first goal scorer. Is that better for someone to use to make something like obscene long shot odds, or is it better to kind of approach something shorter and, give it a little bit of extra juice?
Yeah, exactly. So for the odds surges, it's usually like plus 300 on like a first goal scorer. It typically was, and like obviously compare odds across books. If like Connor McDavid is plus 600 at DraftKings and plus 900 somewhere else, don't use it.
That was a good one for us. That was, by the way, that was a moneymaker for us for the entire playoffs for that
Jordan Martin
first round.
Yeah, Jordan Martin was good for us too on there. But yeah, don't use it. I mean, first of all, compare odds to make sure you're boosting it to above market value. But yeah, use it on the lowest odds. Use it to boost someone from 6-1 to 9-1 instead of someone from 15-1 to 18-1, because that's just not adding the percentage of value. You're getting, if it's a plus 600 and you're adding 50% value to get to 900, or if you're using that 20-1 and you're adding 300, there's only like 1/7 the value. So you want to use the odds surges on the smaller ones, but for the odds boost, like for the profit boost, I think they're called it, the 25%, 50%. Let's use a 50% profit boost, for example. Let's say you have a $10 bet. If you have three picks you really like, minus 200, plus 100, and plus 200. Let's keep it simple. Minus 200, you could bet 10 to win $5, or you can boost it to make it 10 to win around 750. So you're increasing that by 250. If you put it on the plus 100 bet, it's going from 10 to win 10 to 10 to win 15. So you're increasing potentially by $5. And then for 200, it goes from plus 200 to plus 300. So you're going from potentially winning 20, potentially winning 30, increasing your potential gains by $10. So that's kind of how I use profit boosts. If I'm not going to arb them, it's going to be, okay, what bet am I most confident in? That's a long shot to, make it longer. But for those odd surges, pick one of the shorter odds for the goal scorer, first goal scorer, for whoever to win the golf tournament, or for touchdown, or whatever it may be, just to, get that best percentage out of it.
Nice. Well, so you mentioned arbs, and like for a lot of the folks that are watching, they might not have any idea what that is. What is it? And like in its most layman's terms, and how can someone do something how can someone arb when they're betting?
Yeah, so arbitrage is betting the same market against yourself to guarantee profit. So let's say a football game, you see plus 110 at one book, and then team against them are minus 105 in another book. That's a very small arb, but if you have high limits and you can bet like 1,000 on each side and you do that constantly, this is what people do. This is what people do all day. But if you're for more casual bettors, yeah, there are things out there for doing NHL focus. So some books, I think DraftKings, FanDuel, MGM, I think all have, team odds to make the playoffs, and they vary. And I mean, the money's going to be tied up until April, but I mean, there are definitely arb opportunities there where you can bet a team to make the playoffs, let's say plus 200, and to miss them minus 175 at a different book. And like, you're not paying the juice, you're making the juice. You're using your research and your tools and all the books that you have available to you to compare odds. That's the number one thing I think is people may not look for, is compare odds across all books. Don't just go to your go-to book because you like the UX or the interface there. You got to dig around sometimes to find the best odds. And yeah, there are arbs out there, sometimes not necessarily in like the main markets, and you don't want to go too high on the secondary or third-dairy markets because you might get limited. But there are opportunities out there to make a few bucks for a better, like 10-20 bucks depending on what the prices are.
You can tell, I mean, me, like I bet a lot of baseball props, and I definitely found this season that there's certain books that will consistently have like a really favorable number for a total bases, and for the over, and then another one might have the opposite for the under. And those were definitely opportunities. If I wanted to, I could, like I could get Corey Seager for plus money on both sides and like try to do something like that. But I think it's like, it's a scary concept, but I think it's something that like bettors to be good at. And like you said, it kind of ties to just, if you line shop, it naturally can lead you into finding ways to arb. As you mentioned, like Outlier's coming out with some tools that'll make it easy to do this. So no, I appreciate you explaining that to our audience. And now we can kind of talk a little bit about, we can talk about some actual sports stuff. You, like me, are a Flyers fan. Part of why I had you on there, for better or worse. Yeah. So I have barely looked at any of the markets yet. I am high overall on the Kraken, but I wanted you to two things I wanted you to share with folks. Right now, we are obviously pre-hockey. We're in preseason. Yeah, I wanted to see if you had any tips for folks on betting the preseason, and also if there's any kind of futures that you have eyed that you might like.
Yeah. So one more thing on the odds boost is, MGM specifically has an MLB thing. I mean, it's going away this weekend, but they had a thing where you bet a 4-leg parlay. If all legs hit but one, you get a bonus bet back. So people will be like, okay, let's take 4 home runs and put them together and hope 3 hit or something like that. But right, what you should do with something like that is take 3 obvious things that should hit. So like, you can take over 4.5 plus 5.5 for both sides, and then Bryce Harper did hit a home run, and that was 7-1 for me yesterday, and it hit like that. Like stuff like that, there are opportunities out there. But yeah, for NHL preseason, I have it in my notes here somewhere. But I mean, if you're gonna go in and blindly bet home teams. Home teams typically play the better roster. They typically have more NHL guys on there. Home teams have been hitting at an insane clip. I've been just round robining them and profiting. So do that. And also, it's the same thing as NHL regular season betting is, gather the information, try to beat the books to the information, see who's playing, see what goalies are playing in that game. In the preseason, it's typically 2 goalies split at 2 periods, 1 period. But for the regular season, some teams have a starting goalie and a backup goalie, and they're drastically different. And if you're on Twitter and you follow the right accounts, you can see, the backup starting, and you can bet against that team before the line moves on the book. So I feel like the main thing for NHL preseason betting is just getting the information first. And also, you can just shop around. Like sometimes I've bet on DraftKings blindly because it was 20 to 30 cents off other books, and that's going to move eventually. So I mean, just stuff like that. But if you want to just keep it simple, parlay a few home teams and hopefully it'll hit.
Yeah. I actually, for the goalie stuff, I thought I was so smart the other night because the Jets started Connor, and and it was like literally, I'm like, they're just going against some bums, and the Jets lost. They were up, and then they lost in typical Jets fashion. But no, I think that's super helpful for folks. So thinking also about like futures, what do you kind of think? Who are teams that you're kind of high on, and Who are you not? I know folks on your podcast are sometimes biased towards, the Maple Leafs, sometimes the Avs, but who are you looking at? Who are you looking at that people might want to fade, and who are you looking at that people might want to look towards that have a better ceiling?
I mean, after today's news of Andrei Vasilevsky having back surgery, you want to fade the Lightning. I mean, the books have already moved the odds significantly, but the Lightning are a team that I said earlier this offseason, they're one injury away from missing the playoffs. And I didn't know it would be Vasilevsky before the season. They can still obviously bounce back in the season, but I think the Lightning you can fade. A lot of people are trying to fade the Bruins because they lost Bergeron, but I still think they're good enough to make the playoffs. But yeah, the long shots I'm looking at, I wrote this for Sportsgram Podcast this week. 3 cup long shots, the Senators at 75-1. I mean, they had a big offseason last year, bringing in Claude Giroux, brought in Jacob Chikrin, big defenseman from the Coyotes, and during the season, traded away DeBrincat, but brought in Vladimir Tarasenko. They have 3 or 4 great defensemen now, talent up front. They signed a goaltender, Jonas Korpisalo. So I think 75-1 is available. I think at Caesars, it is a lot shorter elsewhere, around 40-1. I don't like that as much. But also in that 75-1 range is another team that one of my co-hosts is sometimes biased to, the Vancouver Canucks. I've bought into them. Thatcher Demko, he has the talent. He's got to put it together. Elias Pettersson can be a Hart Trophy candidate. Quinn Hughes can be a Norris Trophy candidate. So, and Rick Tocchet there, once he took over last season, Rick Tocchet turned that team around. Like the Vancouver Canucks were going to tank, and Tocchet was like, no, I have to build something here for next season. And I think we'll see that. And then one more is the Winnipeg Jets at 70-1. You mentioned the Jets. I think we were both high on them going into first round of the playoffs. They won game 1 against the Golden Knights and then lost in 5 or 6, I believe. But they have Hellebuck. They got rid of Wheeler. They still have Scheifele, still have Ehlers, still have Kyle Connor. Josh Morrissey became a Norris Trophy candidate last year. So I think at 70-1, if they can put the things together, that they have what it takes. I mean, you need a goalie to get hot, and Hellebuck can definitely do that. So I think them at 70-1. And then over at FanDuel, they're hanging some interesting, if you go NHL League specials all the way to the right, you can get all 8 teams from each conference to repeat in the playoffs. So the Western Conference is 49-1, and the Eastern Conference is 90-1. Now look, this is not going to happen, but it's not 90-1. It's not that much of a long shot. I calculated it out. I found the best price for all those 8 teams to make the playoffs, and it was around 15-1. So you're able to get 90-1. I was limited to $20, but still, it's $20 and 90-1. Also, no team to win 60 games, I believe, is around -150 there. That's only happened 4 times in NHL history. Of course, they did have draws and ties before, and the Bruins did win 65 last year. But I think that's a pretty safe bet, and it's also one that you could hedge later in the season if the team is getting close to 60. Start betting on them to if you want to do that. So I think those are some solid bets there for some long shots.
Nope, I agree. Look, to your point, if you can find the team with the goalie that can put the team on their back, it's great. I was a little worried. The reason why I couldn't get in on the Jets was also because I was worried. I thought that they were going to trade him in the offseason, but look, that team was also an injury away. They were going to make that series competitive, and then guys got hurt right away, and it fell apart. I think it's a real good call out on the specials. That's something that I look at also. Honestly, great. Just a good tip, everybody over on FanDuel is when you have even when you have a boost, look at some of the specials for college football and things like that. The passing TD per quarter, stuff like that. That stuff's hidden, and a lot of the times you can find good value for there. So, look, Ryan, this was really helpful. You gave folks a lot of information. This is also, everybody, our longest episode, but I think our most informative. Where can folks find you?
You can follow me on Twitter at rgilbertsop. You can listen to me on the Hockey Limit podcast, my hat here on SGPN. We're putting out team previews pretty much every day leading up to the season. I'm going to be writing pretty much daily best bets for a few different outlets, including Sportsbook Review. So you can check me out all over the place.
Nice. Well, Ryan, thanks for coming by, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Anytime.